Ciao a tutti, my name is Stefano and I'm super excited today because I'm starting this new series about Australia. What does this country have unique in the world? And what a better way to start this series talking about why Australia is the best? Or maybe not. The first reason I want to talk about is how friendly are the Australian people. You know, I came here 15-20 years ago and in no time I was able to build a bunch of guys I was going out with, cycling or drinking a coffee or a beer. Absolutely gorgeous. I think one of the reasons is probably because 30% of the population here in Australia is actually born overseas, like myself. So it's easy to be open-minded and to meet new people. Sometimes when I was here, you know, for the first weeks, I was going to shops and the people working there, they were telling me, hey, how was your day? How is it gonna go for the afternoon? Are you gonna go surfing? You know, this is something that doesn't come in many countries. I'm sure that few people had a bad experience here in Australia. I heard a few comments, you know, but especially about racism. But you know, like in any country in the world, also here we have racism, but there are always idiots around. But the number of racists is so small and sometimes is fooled by politicians with a clear design to take votes. So just take these people apart. Everybody else in Australia is number one. The second reason I want to talk about is the climate. In Australia you have all sorts of climate actually, because you have a sort of Mediterranean climate here in the south of Australia, and then if you go to the center of Australia it's more of a subtropical, and then you move north and it's a tropical. So any season is good for Australia. You can come here, you know, in January and it's gonna be warm, if not hot, in the south part of Australia. And you can come here in July and August and you go to Cairns and the north of Australia and it's gonna be 30 degrees and sunny every single day. And when it's winter, even here now in Melbourne, look at myself. Is it a typical winter day in the northern hemisphere like in Europe or in North America? Not really. 20 degrees, beautiful days, t-shirt. What do you want more? So what is the drawback about this climate? Well, between January and February, you know, especially in the southern part of Australia, you have a few days with 40, 45, even close to 50 degrees days, which means, you know, it's gonna be very, very hot, and that's the season of the fire. And we had really some bad days, especially on a Black Friday a few years ago, and in 2020, also in the southern part of Australia, again fires. You know, people die, people lose their own house and everything they built in their own life. It's really, really bad. And things, unfortunately, are getting worse because of the climate change. There are also few parts of Australia where it's so hot year round. If you go in the center part of Australia, you know, it's not uncommon to have 50 degrees or more, which explains why most of the cities are on the coast. You know, a couple of years ago I had a big cycling ride from Sydney to Melbourne, and then I followed the coast. I went up to Uluru, right in the center of Australia, and I experienced so many desertic areas. The land of Australia is becoming drier and drier, unfortunately. You know, I was in towns like Woomera that in the 50s and the 60s there were about 5,000 people, and now not even 200 people stay there, just because the condition is becoming too harsh and there are too many days with over 50 degrees. Incredible, isn't it? But let's go to reason number 3 now. The third reason I want to talk about is the lifestyle. I feel like here in Australia we have a good balance between working and our private life with friends and family. Another thing I love is the minimum wage, which is $20 an hour. So if you work full-time, you're gonna make about $3,500, $4,000 a month. It's good wage, you know, and allows you to have a good life. And then I moved to the schooling system, which is also so good. You can have a public, which is fantastic, or the private school if you want to. And what about the sport facilities? I'm here in Albert Park, for example. What you see on my back is actually the pit stops of Formula One. But then I'll show you what we have in this park. So many pits, like we have a rugby, and we have a football fields, and then we have a soccer, and then we have anything that you want, from skateboarding to basketball to any kind of sports, besides plenty of playgrounds for kids. So facilities are absolutely great. So what is the drawback of this lifestyle? Well, I feel like the biggest drawback is really the cost of accommodation. In fact, most of the young people tend to share their own accommodation with other people and lower the cost. And if you want to buy, well, get ready to have a big loan, especially in cities like Melbourne and Sydney. And Sydney probably is the most expensive of all. And then there is another thing which touched me a lot, and that's, oh, a big car is coming here. Well, we are in the Formula One track, isn't it? But the biggest thing that touched me a lot, I was saying, is the beer. Because if you go into the city, it can cost you up to $14, $15 a pint. But you know what? If you stay out of the city or you go happy hours, easily you can have a beer for $10. So it's not as bad. Now let's get to reason number 5. But before getting to reason number 5, I just want to ask you to subscribe to the channel, tick that little bell, because in the next week I will post more interesting videos about Australia with some funny facts, of course. And the next one will be very controversial, I feel, and will be about COVID-19, which we haven't experienced much here in Australia, and why Australians, we don't want to actually get vaccinated here. There's a good reason, or maybe not. We'll check it out next week. Now let's get to reason number 5, which are the beaches. I'm here in a beautiful beach which is called Brighton Beach. It's one of the most iconic here in Australia. You know how many beaches we have in Australia? 10,000. Now if you make the math, that means that if you visit a new beach every single day, you will have a 30-year trip. Can you believe it? But it's not only about the quantity, it's also about the quality of these beaches, because they are so fabulous. Usually the water is crystal clear, and then you're gonna share them with just a bunch of people. There are not many people around usually in the beach, besides maybe the famous ones like Bondi, like Manly Beach, like St Kilda Beach, and of course this one, which is Brighton Beach, because of the beautiful color shades. I will show you a little bit more. So what are the drawbacks about the beaches in Australia? Well, the first one, which is really minor, actually could be an advantage, is that there are no organized beaches, so there is not a place where you can rent your sunbeds or your umbrellas. It doesn't work that way. It's more of a bring your own stuff. The second one, which is actually a drawback, yeah, most definitely, sharks. We have about 60 accidents every year, of which last year we had 12 fatalities. It's mostly with surfers, I must say, probably because of the shape of the board. And if you go for a swim, at the beach, it's very rare that you get actually attacked by a shark. The other dangerous animal is the crocodile, and with the crocodiles it's a bit different because we have only one fatality every 2-3 years. But we don't have accidents, because if a crocodile gets you, you're gonna die. There's not much option there. And then the third one is the box jellyfish. It's mostly between November and April in the northern part of Australia, usually on the Queensland coast. But if you wear just a light wetty, you will be fine. And that's pretty much it about beaches. But before leaving the beaches subject, I want to tell you one of the most funny signals that I have experienced in my life, and that was in close to Darwin, the Darwin beach, where there was big signs saying pay attention to the sharks. Obviously, you expect that in the north. Pay attention to the crocodiles. So okay, I'm not sure I want to get into the water now. And then crocodiles may come up on the beach, so don't fall in sleep. Oh my God. And if you're here between November and April, jellyfish are also a problem. So okay, I better go back to the swimming pool of the resort. And And here I am with reason number 5. In the meantime, the wind has picked up a little bit and the t-shirt is not enough anymore. Well, it's winter, so it's expected. Anyway, reason number 5 is the wildlife, the nature, the landscape, the forest, the mountains, the deserts. Really, you have everything here in Australia. And you know, Australia has the highest number of national parks in the world. Can you believe it? Well, it's a big piece of land, Australia, of course. So there are many national parks. But now, it's not just that, it's the experiences that you can have here in Australia. For example, I remember once I was in Wineglass Bay in camping, incredible place in Tasmania, and I was having dinner, I was having a sandwich, shoulder to shoulder with a wallaby, you know, all of the wildlife coming there because they are used to the people, they are used to the fact that people are not gonna harm them. I think also probably because they are used to tourists giving food to the wildlife, but of course never give food to the animals. So what is the drawback of the wildlife in Australia? Well, I already talked about the sharks, the crocodiles and the jellyfish. Definitely Australia has a few dangerous animals, but it's not just that, you know, there are plenty of snakes around, of which probably the inland taipan, if I remember well, is the most venomous snake in the world, but it's mostly in the center of Australia, so honestly I've never seen in my life here. But there are many other snakes that you have to take care of. In fact, when you go trekking, I really suggest here in Australia to wear the trekking guard for the snakes. And in the city, well, in the city probably the most dangerous animal is the spider. It's called the redback spider. And if you do gardening, probably it's a good suggestion to wear your gloves, because if they bite you, well, you have to go to the hospital straight away. I never experienced them, but I'm not really a gardening lover, so I don't spend much time in the garden, to be honest with you. Okay, I think it's time to go to reason number 6 here. And here I am with reason number 6, which is food and drinks. You know, I am originally from Italy, but I'm not missing Italy that much. Why? Because the variety of food you can have here is just astonishing. It's not just about, you know, Australian food, but also you can get Italian, French, Spanish, Malaysian, Indonesian, Thai, all fantastically, all good. Of course, you can get better Italian food in Italy, that's what you expect, but also the Italian food here is absolutely gorgeous. So the variety of the food that you can get here is really unbeatable. And the wine, in one of my previous life, you know, I was a sommelier, and the wine here, I tell you, is absolutely gorgeous and totally underrated compared to the European wine. Beers, I'm having one here in my local pub, the Espy. If you are in Melbourne, you have to pay a visit here in St Kilda. The craft beer is absolutely gorgeous, fantastic variety. Really, you won't miss any other place in the world. So what is the drawback of the food and drinks here? Yeah, well, they can be expensive. Dining really can be expensive. Lunch, especially if you are in the CBD, can be cheap, but you know, beers are a little bit expensive. I already talked about that. $15 for the pint can be, you know, a bit too much. And finally, reason number 7, low density. You know, we are only in 20 million people in such a big country. It has to be said that most of the people live on the East Coast, the South Coast, up to Adelaide, and then other people then in Western Australia. Northern Territories in the north is only probably 200,000 people, if I remember well. Put a comment if it's not true. But you see, even on this beach, which is only 7k from the city of Melbourne, there are not many people around. Okay, it's winter, I'm faking a little bit here, but still a beautiful day. I would have expected more people around. Now, in saying that, what's the drawback? The drawback obviously is the isolation. We are far away from everything. You know, there are cities like Perth is the most isolated city in the world. If I want to go to another place with different culture, I would probably have to go to Bali, which is 5 hours from here, which is not too bad actually. But if you want to go to Southeast Asia, more in Thailand, Vietnam, expect 8 to 10 hours. If you want to go to ski, you can go to New Zealand. Beautiful places over there, and the culture very similar to here. If you want to fly to Europe, 24 hours, it's a lot of time, but you get used to it, honestly. After a few years I was here, you know, I consider 4 hours flight like a short flight, going to Bali, long weekend, going to Europe, well, you get used to it. You just sleep on the flight and that's over in 24 hours. And that's over also for this video. I hope you enjoy. Please do subscribe to the channel because I will come out with more interesting and funny videos about Australia. And I'll see you in the next one next week. Bye. Ciao.